welcome to another episode of the Raised by Wolves podcast. I'm your host, Joe, and once again, you keep showing up.
Here I am, bro. Here I am.
To my left, right, or right in front of me this time, my co-host, Mr. Handsome, JC Coates.
In the flesh, brother. How we doing?
Good, dude. I'm good. I'm awake now.
I can tell you are. You had your
I fell asleep because I'm fucking old.
Oat milk
latte.
I
fell asleep. Fucking fell asleep a little while ago. I was supposed to meet with him for coffee and discuss some business shit. I fell asleep. And
happens to the best of us.
Fucking fell asleep. I woke up, and then I'm on my way over here, and I text him, and I was like, I wasn't texting driving in case any cops were watching this. But I text him and I say, man, can you please order me a coffee, man? And when I walked in, I was like, in the Starbucks right down the street here.
Oh, there you
go.
I
was hoping that I was awake for this, man, because I was pumped about it, man.
It's a cappuccino latte with oat milk. I mean,
no sugar.
No sugar.
I don't like the sugary shit.
It's a very cute
coffee. Cute coffee, right? Like back in the day, man, I used to smash on a lot of like fucking caramel lattes and all that.
They put the little designs in it too.
Yeah, a little fucking heart. Fucking, man.
I just get the Americano,
Yeah, I like that too, man.
Yep.
But enough about my fucking coffee situation and my addiction to that. But today I'm pretty excited. You just so you've never met Snap before this today, right?
We got acquainted today for the first time.
Yep.
I did follow him on Instagram.
The social.
Yep, followed back, saw that.
See some things that he's accomplishing and everything. So
excited
cool. to dive into this.
So we have I feel there's guests and then there's like special guests. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like I have a special guest today because when I first met Snap, first off, thanks for being on, Snap.
Yeah,
Murphy.
thank you guys for having me. Appreciate being part of this.
Nah, man, I'm stoked. I was waiting for the day. I almost like subconsciously were counting down the days until I knew because I knew how passionate you were about being sober this time. You know what I mean? And I knew that you were across that year. And in my mind, I've always kind of had this like thing in my mind where it's like, I want to put people on here because even though we're not a sobriety podcast, like I originally was going to start, like it's a recovery podcast. I knew how passionate about this, how passionate this was for you this time. And I was like kind of subconsciously counting down the days till you'd reach the year so I could ask you to be on the podcast. You know what I mean? Man. So I was like, I knew that as soon as I saw you cross the year, I was going to be like, hey, do you want to get on the next podcast? And as soon as I seen it, the next podcast I asked you to be on,
Yeah, that's awesome.
So I was stoked about that. And I told Ian, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ian Lovelace. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna Snap on. He's like, yeah, dude, because Ian is really in your corner, bro.
Yeah,
like he tells me all the time when I'm out here, hey, did you hook up with Snap? Did you hook up with Snap? He tells me every time, annoyingly. I'm like, dude, I'm so fucking busy.
No, I love Ian, man. Just an incredible musician. From the first time I met him, just inspired.
Yeah, I think you met him. Did you meet him first time at my house, or was it at the?
I think I've probably met him at the your actual lounge at Container Park at the time, and then actually got to see him make music for the first time at your house.
Yeah, I just posted a video, I think, of that night. Like I'm playing a guitar at my house when I lived over at Mountain's Edge.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, I met you through a mutual friend that I've known for a long time, B. Dolan, on Strange Famous. And I just spoke with him not that long ago. And, he's doing his thing, of course. And then so how I met Snap, I didn't know who Snap was. I didn't really follow the hip-hop scene here in town at all. Of course, like I'm a big metalhead. I love hip-hop. I love fucking country, I love twangy shit. I love everything, but I love hip hop, underground hip hop, and metal, right? So not really following the hip hop scene out here, but I got friends like Strange Famous, like those guys on the Strange Famous, like Sage Francis, B. Dolan, those guys, and so B. Dolan's like, hey man, you come check out this kid. Obviously you're not a kid, I didn't know that. You know what I mean? He's like, you come check out this kid. You know what I mean? That I'm gonna be doing this, rocking this show with over on the east side or whatever. I don't remember the name of that place.
Man, I don't even remember.
Yeah.
How long ago was this?
This was like maybe 5 years ago, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe 5 years ago.
Yeah, probably 4 or 5
years ago.
Yeah.
And so I go there, and B is like an incredible MC. You know what I mean too.
Yeah.
And so it's like, before B's there, he's kind of doing this little mini tour to clear his head, is what he had told me. He's like, dude, I need to get on the road. So he's doing this mini tour, doing this thing. And he's like, this dude, Snap, that I know from online, is Snap Murphy is going to be there. And that's before I knew really Charlie, too. And it was Charlie Madness at the time, you know. And so now it's Charles King, you know what I mean? And so he's a distinguished now. But so I go and, and then he, Snap comes on, and he's just fucking have you listened to his music since adding
just
him?
clips, just a little bit. Yeah.
And he fucking goes off. Like he's
Okay.
just like,
Yeah.
and he's just like, and like I was like, holy shit. So I was like a fan that night, and then and then I get to know him, and then like we become friends, and I'm just like, it's cool to be friends with people that you're fans of their work. And so I've tried to everything that I can get Snap and Charlie really involved with that I've ever done out here. Like, when we start doing more business, I want to get you back involved with doing that. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I've been a fan, and so it was, it's been pretty cool. It's not been cool on how recovery started for you, and we'll get into that, but it's been cool to see your journey, you know what I mean, to kind of watch it, you know what I mean, come from a kind of afar. You know what I mean? And so we'll definitely get involved with that.
Awesome.
Today, man.
Yeah, man.
Snap Murphy in the studio.
Snap Murphy is in the studio.
The half man, half turkey Snap Murphy. Gobble, gobble.
Yeah.
So like outside of like hip hop, is that your main thing right now? Like what are you up to right now? What
So I mean, in really a nutshell, I mean, I've been making music and rap practically my whole life. So
Nice.
I stay busy with the music, and during my day job, which I do have as well, I work for Allegiant Airlines doing social media.
Dope. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I love that.
It's a nice little combo.
And it's cool that you talk about that, because I think a lot of guys, like artists and people, there's a lifestyle that's like they might be embarrassed to have a job. You know what I'm saying?
100%,
Because they think that like what their art is supposed to really carry them. That's who they are. That's like they have that personal attachment. So I think it's cool that you're like, I have a fucking job too. You know
For sure. And what I did was I found a job that would only help the music career. Being that I got flight benefits, fly for free. My goal was always, I want to work in the airline industry so I can fly for free, and then I can go rock the cities all across the United States that I want to go rock.
That's perfect.
And now I got the dream position, because I literally just a week ago got promoted to social media.
Nice.
And I was doing customer service all the way up for the last 3.5 years to get to where I'm at today. So just one of the accomplishments I'm proud of right now.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah. No, that's pretty awesome. We I was just listening to a podcast earlier today where Yellow Wolf was talking. He was on. I listened to an episode, and he said that you remember Yellow Wolf's song "Pop the Trunk."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that was obviously I'm a fan of a lot of Yellow Wolf stuff.
He's incredible.
But not that album, believe it or not.
Right,
because I didn't like that album, in which I guess, Trunk Music or whatever was like his most successful album, but it's the one album in his whole collection. I like stuff more recent of his.
For sure.
Is weird
his performances on stage are
he's amazing on stage. You know what I mean? He's got a own style in himself. Like, he's a crazy ass MC that wears like cowboy boots and suspenders, and which is dope. You know what I mean? Like, I like that. But he was still working a landscaping job after Pop the Trunk was released.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he talked about that. He said, he said he was doing that because he was like, he thought that, okay, cool, I'm going to get the sign bonus, I'm going to do this and that, and what happens, you realize the money goes pretty fucking quick when you don't have a money manager, and then he's over here like weed whacking on the side of the freeway, and like people are like, yo, Yella, and he was just like shaking his head, like he had mask on, so he was like, that's not me, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, and
for
so,
sure.
But so it's crazy. A lot of people don't realize, man, that money leaves just as much as just as quickly as it'll go,
And the thing is, like, my name's Snap. A lot of people don't know this, but it's an acronym for showing negativity and positivity. And not necessarily like just thinking like showing negative things, but just being honest with like, hey, like, I'm struggling, don't know if I'm going to pay rent this month, because when you're a starving artist and you're going hard, like, life happens, or hey, like, I'm battling depression, or hey, like, you let people know exactly the truth, rather than most rappers just want to glorify all the wins. They want to be in the cars and the videos that they really don't have, or have the females in their videos that they really don't. They're not really
they're
theirs.
lying, bro.
Yeah, it's just like, I just want
I
just wanted them to get the real me,
Yeah, I've had musicians, I'm not going to throw them under the bus right here, when you said that have used my fucking cars for their shit.
For sure.
Like, they're on social media over here talking about it. They're like, hey, bro, I use your car. Like, my car's in the shop. Use a car, and then I'm seeing fucking social media posts with my car in it. I'm just like, whatever, man. If that's how you want to live your life, I'd rather, I'd rather not live it like that.
Right.
But not to shit on those guys.
No, not at all. Yeah.
But, that's
to each their own,
Yeah, to each their own, man. It is, they got I got a shirt coming out, and I'm gonna not sidebar too much after this. I got a shirt coming out. I got Black Wolves, which is like a t-shirt brand that I'm dropping on Amazon, just some other shit, just to do it. more than anything. And one of them, it literally says, the problem with society is people want to look rich and not be rich.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's the truth. You know what I mean?
So
it's
true.
Like, you know, but it's crazy, man. But so we have kind of a, kind of got a, like I was explaining to you, we have a roadmap on kind of how we do these shows, you know, these podcasts. And so we're really where we start is where most podcasts, most fucking interviews start is like, you know, tell us about yourself, you know, where were you born, and you know what I mean, like a little bit about the young Snap.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up initially in Hammond, Indiana, and grew up without my dad really in my life. He was abusive, alcoholic, you know, and so my mom worked at a bar, had 3 boys. I was the youngest. I had 2 older brothers. And grew up in Hammond, Indiana. Got into hip hop because while mom was working, I didn't get to watch the cartoons like a lot of kids did, or you know, get to do what I wanted to do. It was always what my brothers wanted. So like the Yo MTV raps and you know MTV in the early days was prone to me, and you know, just grew up out there. I got inspired by rap and hip hop and writing just from the lifestyle that I was kind of involved and seen with my brothers and gang, shot, stabbed, in and out of prison. That's what brought me to Las Vegas in 1997. So my mom knew that if I was going to ever have a chance in life, just because it's a crooked system, you know, out there in the high schools, you had a principal that had his nephew that was in a gang at that high school. My brother's in a rival gang, and like they're not going to my mom's not putting me in a school system where you have to deal with things like that, deal with being shot at, and just the things that I seen in my life as a childhood. So I got out here in Vegas in '97. Mom moved me here with my stepdad, and been in Vegas ever since.
Awesome. Did mom come too? So mom and stepdad came? Yeah.
So both of my brothers ended up staying back. They ended up going with my dad.
Got it.
And then I was the youngest, and I left with my mom and my stepdad in '97 at 13 years old.
13 years old. Wow. Yeah. And so like when that move happened, was that like, were you excited about that, or were you like, what? Like,
the funny thing is just the way that my life was and all the chaos and the things that I've seen and the struggles. I had a dog, Buster, that was like my best friend, and when it was screaming and fighting and yelling, it was like I held on to that dog, you know, like that's what I wanted. So when I had to find out we were leaving, we were moving into an apartment where they didn't have, you know, they couldn't have dogs into. So my mom gave the dog to the next door neighbor, and I wasn't even, I mean, I hate to say this, but it's just true. I wasn't devastated that I was leaving my brothers, my dad, anything. What killed me was leaving that dog, because that was all I knew. That was my protection. So I wasn't excited. I didn't want to move to Vegas. I felt like at the time it was just something, as a kid, you had no other option. You know, you left with your mom and your stepdad. Matter of fact, I remember the first time visiting Las Vegas, I get off the plane and everybody's on the slot machines, and I run to a slot machine to see what it is, and this attendant there was like, "You can't be by the machines," you know, because I'm a kid.
He used to really be bad back then.
So I'm like kind of mad, like, "Mom, what is this? Like, I can't play." Like, she's like, "Oh, you can't play that. That's a slot machine," and had to like let me know what was happening. And I remember telling her that I don't like this place already. So you're telling me that, you know, adults can play kids games, but kids games can't play the adult games, you know? I was like, I don't like this place. And so I had a very, I didn't like Vegas for many, many years, actually. I grew upon me really within the last 4 years to where it's became my home and my heart.
So you moved here in '97, and then in the last 4 or 5 years, Vegas has really grown on you?
That took that long.
Damn, man. That's so wild.
Because I found new things in my life. You know, my life has changed so much to where, you know, just simply the hiking, you know, like I fell in love when the pandemic hit. Hiking became my favorite thing in life to do. And
mine too, man. Mine too. The pandemic was like, hiking was my shit.
So when I started loving the hikes and focusing on myself and not thinking about how it's hard to meet a good woman in Las Vegas, and, you know, and a lot of people, they chastise me for that, because like, oh, it's like that anywhere you go, but it's not. And my personal experiences, depending on where you grow up and where you're at, what you're around, it makes a person kind of different. It's adaptable to their own environment. And Vegas is a whole different environment than where I grew up in Hammond, Indiana. Even though I moved out here as a young kid, just even visiting, and I still have friends from kindergarten that I still talk to now, you know. So just the the being like an old soul and a Midwestern personality has never changed out of me, and it's kind of been hard to adapt that into Las Vegas for myself, I feel.
That's interesting that you mentioned that, because I lived here. I've mentioned it a few times even on the show. Like, I lived here. I love Las Vegas.
Yeah,
period.
yeah.
Like, my goal is to I got some hidden agendas to get back here, like full time. You know what I mean? Not hidden. They're not too hidden. But anyways, like I was younger, and I lived here when I was, oddly enough, I lived here when I was I moved here when I was 12, and I moved away when I was 14. So really within that 2-year period, after I moved back to California, I always, my brother and I talked a lot about this, is that we always thought Vegas was our home. Like, because we did, we had a lot of firsts, like, not TMI, but I had all my firsts here,
Sure,
you know what I mean? And
I
so
get it.
I just felt like that was, and so I've always felt like, that's never left me, but that could be the reason why, like, I was such a degenerate for a long time. Maybe I had Vegas in my blood, you know what I mean? And you still have Indiana in your blood,
I do, and I like I said, grew on to Vegas. I love it now, and you get older, you start to realize too, like, no matter where you're at, it's kind of what you make out of it too. At the end of the day, the people that are in your corner and just whatever your habits are, it's just easy to get persuaded to live a hard lifestyle in Las Vegas. So we're in Sin City, and if you got the addictions and addictive personality, then it could be a struggle,
And let's dive in that, because it's kind of like the stage is set, right? The arc of your story, right? So you kind of got pulled out of Indiana, away from like some trouble, right? Away from your father. You're out here with your stepdad and your mom, and you just kind of get thrown into this stuff, right? And like you mentioned, you're just now kind of falling in love with Vegas. So right there, I can only imagine, the trauma for a 13-year-old kid like that.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
So like, where did that lead you kind of like on a path of, being addicted?
Coming out here at a young age, I had acne, and I would listen to my headphones. Mom and stepdad would yell at me everywhere I went, in restaurants, wherever. I always had my headphones on, listening to hip hop, rap, I wrote a lot. That's when I started really writing a lot.
Nice.
And it's because now I lost my dog, I don't have my brothers around, and it's just a new environment. And, I got out here, I played basketball, which was one of my first loves. And I played basketball and rapped. And then on the school bus, like, I just felt like I was really shy, had low self-esteem, because there was a girl that I really liked. And I remember telling her that I liked her, and her saying, "You would be really cute if you didn't have acne." And it really messed me up all the way throughout school. So when I first came out here, I was at Grant Sawyer in 6th grade.
Okay.
Or Becker in 6th grade, then went to Grant Sawyer to finish out 7th and 8th grade.
Oh, okay.
So, I come out, I have acne really bad and hard to find a girl, and, wanting to experience with that at that age. And then also just working hard with the music stuff. I made friends always easy. So that was the thing. I always had friends, but that's when I started diving into, smoking pot. And that was the first thing. That was like always just my main thing, was smoking pot with my friends. And, I was always the guy that like would, even through high school, I'd just go and freestyle and rap. And like, we kind of grew up rough, so I didn't have a lot of money growing up as a kid, and so I couldn't really buy weed, so all my friends would just be like, "Hey man, I'm coming to pick you up, come freestyle rap with us," and, or just show us some new songs and we'll smoke a blunt with you. And so like that's how I smoked weed throughout my whole entire like teens. It
became kind of like a refuge for you, right?
Yeah, for sure. Just a getaway, I was scared to do it. My mom was always so against pot. My mom was really against pot. And so I always was scared to death because of the fact that my brothers, keep in mind, like I said, been shot at, stabbed. They were in gangs out in Indiana. And, so like my mom was always I remember her so many nights of like my brothers running away and crying and not knowing where they're at. And so I always knew that if I had a curfew, I always honored that. I was always a mama's boy. Like my mom had so much trauma that, I had to be home on time, but also I'd be so scared to come home because I smelled like weed and I knew how much she hated weed. So it was like I remember one time I went to jail for having pot. And I remember telling the cops, like, I don't even care I'm going to jail. I care about my mom more than I don't fear jail.
Yeah,
I fear my mom.
Yeah.
That's wild.
But so yeah, a lot of it for me, the teens and getting used to everything and transitioning. A lot of it was just playing basketball, playing with my friends, chasing girls, but just smoking weed and just kind of getting involved into that whole cycle per se.
Yeah. So like it's almost like the hip hop culture kind of like it healed you in a lot of ways. It kind of like hugged you and kind of like nurtured you through, a lot of the struggles.
100%.
Being that kid that you weren't happy, right?
Yeah.
And then of course with that culture comes smoking weed and hanging out with the wrong crowds. So take us down the path. Like where does it start kind of getting?
Yeah. So it starts getting rocky. Like so basically, I'm in 8th grade. And one of these guys that I rapped with, who I still think to this day could have been one of the best rappers in the entire world, his name was Ryan Jacobs. He always looked like 2 or 3 years older than everybody else, but it's just, just tough. He was a tough dude, and he was out robbing people, things like that. And I remember we used to get dropped off. I'd get dropped off at the movie theater when it was called Act 3, which is Fort Apache in Sahara. But that was the hangout spot, and I remember hanging out front. Mom would give me $10 to see a movie. He'd get $10. We would go buy weed with our money, not go to the movie, and then we would freestyle rap about the new movies that were on, like the front of the boards, and hang out with a bunch of people. And then we would leave, go smoke, and then just me and him rap the whole entire time. And we had other friends involved. Well, as I started hanging out with him, it became, where it was like he was so good at rap, it got me, honed to be really good at a young age too. But then he started dabbling. One day we're in the car and he grabs out a meth pipe. And
how old were you?
And at this time I'm in 9th grade.
Oh.
And I remember this is like the first time being exposed to meth and seeing meth. And thank God I never smoked meth a day of my life. But being in that car and then seeing him, kind of light it up. And the other friend that makes beats, he was lighting it up. I was shocked. Like I did not expect this. And then they tried to pass me the pipe. And then I was just like, oh, I'm good, man. I'm good, And so I didn't smoke it. And I remember that day, I need to stop hanging out with them. If this is what they're on, this is just not where the path I want to go to. So, it started there. And then just some of the friends that I was around start realizing that other drugs start coming into you in your high school years. And so another friend, I remember I dropped him off. He needed a ride. And I'm 16, I was using my mom's car. And then he tried to give me like meth for dropping him off, and I went home and I flushed it down the toilet. I was like, I'm not giving this to my friends. Like, I'll flush it down the toilet. And so, that kind of stuff was kind of like coming to me where I see that drugs are starting to be around more, and ecstasy and all these things. I was always too scared, thank God, at the time to do anything other than smoke weed, cocaine or, meth. Ecstasy. At the time they had Red Rock opium. People were breaking up and putting in weed, which is practically heroin. And I never had those problems because I loved rap so much. I was too scared, number one, that I would fuck up my brain from being able to think the way I do when I create art. And also just knowing that I come from a family of addiction, had my 2 older brothers in drugs, it scared me go down to seeing their path. I didn't want to go down their path. And that's something I thank myself every day.
That's a huge blessing because a lot of people don't have that way of thinking, especially when we're young, because a lot of times, myself included, I went down on that path and I didn't have those thoughts, what I mean? Like I didn't think where it could ended up, right? And then 100%. I just kind of went without having like my mind
JC
developed,
JC fell off fucking rails. Wait till you watch that episode.
He is real crazy.
Yeah, man, I
literally.
get it.
I'm just kidding. No, man, but it is. It's crazy. We can both relate in different ways, because I know JC's full story now, most of it, and then my story. I was so obsessed at the time with not being like the tweakers that I grew up around, to where I never did drugs.
Yeah,
I just didn't, because like we would make fun of like the tweakers. We would literally like. As shitty as this sounds, we would chase tweakers around like on purpose, like in my neighborhood. We'd be like, "Hey, motherfucker!" and like chase them. And they'd be like running, and shit. But it's just bad, but we were kids, and so I just didn't want to be around that shit. My stepdad fucking cooked meth and everything, and I was just like, "Why do I want to be like this piece of shit?"
Right.
But just as easily, there could have been one of those days, that I know that JC obviously experienced this, where I could have been hanging around with the the wrong person at the wrong time, and I could have been like, fuck it, who cares? I'm different than these guys. Let me hit this pipe.
Let me try.
What I mean?
Yeah.
Let me do this, and then I could have sent me down the fucking whirlwind of shit. You know? But it's scary to think, because we're obviously on here and we're talking about recovery and overcoming obstacles and stuff like that. So, you know, when I first met you, I was still drinking pretty heavily.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And like, you know, you were drinking. We drank the first night I met. I was drinking with you. You know what I mean, and stuff. And you know what I mean. And I don't want to, you know, I guess jump in here. You know what I mean. And like JC and you, JC was on the right. You know what I mean? A line of questioning. I
sure.
should say.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. No.
Oh no. I was just gonna say. Well, you know what I mean. You know, when was the first time you tried drinking?
Yeah, I mean, that's right into where I was at with, like, you know, so you see all these things, you're smoking weed, and then 9th grade, right around that time, it's like, okay, I'll never forget this. I went into a 7-Eleven and I hear somebody go, Phil. And I'm the only person in 7-Eleven at this time, right? So I'm not paying attention to somebody saying, Phil, my name's Matt. I'm going to grab a drink, and then all of a sudden, Phil! I hear Phil again. So now at this point, I'm looking back, and the guy at the counter's like, really, bro? And I go, what? He goes, you come here last night, you buy your 6-pack, and you leave your ID? And I was like... And in my head, I go, oh, is that where I left it? So this guy gives me an ID of this guy that looks like me. The only difference, his name's Phil, but the only difference was his height was 6'7", and at the time I'm like 5'11". But that, other than that, I kind of looked like the guy.
Yeah.
Wow.
So you didn't have a scientist hand you an ID. It's a guy that worked at 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
He wasn't
And the funny thing is, I mean, the first time I went to like a club, or I was in Newport Richey, I was in Newport Richey, Florida, because my grandmother lived there. But we went to like this party city called Ybor City, and I'm with my brother, who is 21 at the time, and I'm like, 16, 17. And I start using this guy's ID. I'm going to clubs. I'm going to bars. It worked literally everywhere. It was so funny.
Phil caused you to have a drinking problem.
Yeah, my middle brother's name, also Phil.
Oh, wow.
But, so it's really just started kind of like in high school. You go to the parties, I'm rapping, I'm freestyling, we smoke weed, there's kegs at these parties, there's drinks. I find that this is where I'm getting confidence from at the time. I'm thinking, okay, like this makes me feel loose and I can hit on girls when I'm too shy to, or I can do that. That's something I thought for many years, that this alcohol is liquid confidence. Now things have changed, obviously, and I look at it completely different. But, at the time, that's really where it all started. Now, it was mainly just the drinking at the parties is where it started. Then it became a thing where I'd go to friends' houses on the weekends, and I'm drinking 40s of Old English at the time, and all that 32 Miller High Life. Yeah, we're drinking that kind of stuff. And and so I started drinking at 16. Started drinking at a young age, and it was like a every weekend thing: smoking weed, drinking alcohol.
Yeah,
that's where it all started.
Yeah,
and then how did it get, like, where like,
so
did it get bad for
journey,
you? Did it get bad for you?
It never got to a point where it was like I needed beer to wake up, or I needed a beer after getting off work. But my whole thing is if I went to school for 5 days a week, or I worked 5 days a week, first thing I'm thinking about, weekend's here. I want to decompress and I want to drink. Right. And that was just how the whole time until finally I got to where, I actually stopped. But it was just, that was the whole thing for me. And then, what really happened is, as I was doing that, the problem was I battled depression. And out of every single drug and everything out there, alcohol is the absolute worst. It's a depressant.
It's antidepressant.
It's the worst for people who struggle with depression. And that's not condoning everything else being good, because it's not the case. But, with alcohol, if you have depression, it's going to make it worse. And so it got to a point for me where I was, I had Fridays and Saturdays off at work now. And it's Thursday night. And, hey, anybody want to go hang out at a bar? No one wants to go. So there was times I went by myself. And those were some of the darkest times of my life, because as I'm sitting there, I remember one time I was in a bar by myself, and after I drank my beer, I thought to myself, I'm just going to kill myself after this beer's done. I'm going to go out to Mount Charleston, and I'm going to go hang myself, because I hate my life. I was and this is just in my 30s, like not even.
How long ago is this?
So this was probably like around 30. 32 at the time.
What was going on in your life other than battling depression?
Yeah, so at this time it's been an ongoing
life?
thing of battling depression. My dad struggled with depression, my brothers. My mom started getting PTSD. You see your mom struggle, and she's raising 3 nephews because my middle brother's on drugs, the mom was on drugs. Those kids all struggled with drugs too, so all 3 boys. My mom worked her ass off and just did everything that she possibly could for her family. It always came first, and somebody's always in trouble, somebody's running away from home, so she gets off of work and it's constant, I'm chasing these kids around, and all the way till her death, but she basically had to go through all of those things, and that was very difficult as a kid that just wanted to make it so I can give my mom the world, make sure she never has to work again, take the stress, take the worry from her. And no matter how hard I tried, I was struggling financially myself and went through some very rough breakups, that we all can relate to. And, just the things in life, it just felt like piling up on me and not feeling good enough and not having any self-esteem, no confidence. Nobody to really steer me in the right way and be the advice. I'm always the advice for everyone, and I felt like
that's heavy by itself.
Yeah,
that's heavy.
And you get to a point where you realize that I feel like I'm losing myself. And so that night when I actually went in my car, I drove to Mount Charleston, and I get out, I hiked 3 miles in pitch black and just crying the whole way. And I don't have any faith in God at the time. I lost my faith because my life has been so hard, I feel like, through all the way up until then. And I just thought, like, I want to end it all right now. And the only thing that stopped me, there's 2 times I wanted to kill myself. And both times it wasn't God that saved me. It was knowing that my mom lived such a hard life. I can't do this to her. And I wanted death so bad that I was like, I didn't care. Like every day, so the drinking gets worse, the eating horrible, and just doing everything I did to my body. It just got to be really hard on me. And meanwhile, during all of this, there was always this other thing inside of me that just said, hold on and have faith and, never give up. So I've always been positive. Mm-hmm. I always had a positive mind, and I always projected it in social media. Mm-hmm. And then you get like your friends and the ones close to you, like, dude, you're fake because you're talking about how, people need to, people should feel this way and appreciate life, but you're struggling. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. But you know what? This is even my own advice to myself. Yes, yeah. And I put that positive message out there because I believe in it. Even if I'm struggling with it, it's just like, it's the right advice that I'm following for myself all the way up until I manifested it.
I'll tell you one thing right here, before I forget, is that I guarantee more than buying your mom a house, more than anything financially you could have ever done to your mom, the idea that she didn't have to worry about you struggling was more of a win for her. I guarantee
100%, man. It was those times in my life that really, some of the times I'm mostly grateful for, I opened up for Bone Thugs at the Hard Rock Pool at the time, and I had my brothers on, to come out and check it out, my mom, and there's, maybe 5,000 people watching the show. My brother shows up afterwards, strung out on meth. My mom's like holding him by the cheeks, like, honey, what are you doing to yourself? But like, meanwhile, I'm on that stage, and knowing how hard my mom's life is, to be able to say, I just want everybody to know, my mom's right there in the crowd, and I wouldn't be able to make music because she's always been the inspiration, the motivation, want to make it for mom. So I went hard with the desire to make music, and, just being able to say, hey, that person in the crowd, that's why I make this music. I tell everybody I'm vulnerable of everything I've gone through. And, so it's just all of those people coming up to my mom and saying, hey, your son saved my life, or hey, like during the times I've took her to shows, and hey, that you have an amazing kid. Other mothers telling her, like, it made me feel so complete and what I could give to my mom other than the houses and things, because now I look back at it of like, those times, and also being the first local rapper in Vegas to ever have a song played at a Golden Knights game. We grew up on hockey outside of Chicago and Indiana.
Did you have it played at the Cup?
I did have.
Oh, you had it a couple of times, right? Yeah.
2 times. So the 2017 inaugural season, November 28th, they played it, and that was just knocking doors down and just trying to pitch and following up on emails till eventually I annoyed him enough to like, okay, we're gonna put him on. And I took my mom with me and one of my ex-girlfriends at the time, who was my girlfriend. But just having my mom in that building, like, man, we grew up going to Blackhawks games, like taking her there and getting to hear my song played in that stadium. Shout out to Jason Wagner. Jake Wagner, sorry. He hooked it up and got me on at that time. So that was awesome. And then this year in October, towards the end of, December 28th, I want to say, DJ Joe Green, shout out to Joe Green, Las Vegas Golden Knights DJ. He played one of my songs with my friend Greg Whiskey. And yeah, that was in the stadium. So I can always tell in the future, friends, whatever, I'll be that old guy like, hey, I was the first rapper to ever have a song played at a Golden Knights game, and I also had my song played during the championship season.
I think it's incredible, and I think it's really important too, because I think, I thought, that your story was really about alcohol, and it is, but it's really about...
You haven't heard everything.
It's really about depression too, right?
Yeah,
and
100%.
so like you can rack up these huge wins as an artist, right? And then you can still be struggling with the depression.
100%.
And you've talked about how far it took you when you walked out on the cliff and you wanted to die and all that stuff. I'm interested, and I think it's important for people to hear. It's like, what are some of the things that you're able to do to kind of pull you out of that depression?
It has been a lifelong journey for me to figure this all out, and I still learn some of those things today as a sober individual. But at first, that's where the blessing I've always had is in writing and creating music, is you start to realize, and this is very rare, especially for a rapper, to lose your ego, because your ego is everything in rap. That's why you don't see country battling and people getting shot over like West Side or South Side of country artists, like battle rap. There's not, it's just a very egotistical sport. Yeah,
outlaw country is a little different,
UFC.
but I know.
Yeah, no,
mean.
exactly.
Like, outlaw country is like probably worse than hip hop.
No, yeah, but it's like, kind of like the UFC. Like, you're going against your opponent and you're battle rapping. Like, it's like if you lose, like, you feel like it's over. Yeah. So it's just kind of, you put your everything into it. So those things of where all of the depression, all of the hurt, all of the pain, I never wanted anyone in this world to feel the way I felt inside about myself.
He has a lot of positive. So there's positive rappers.
Yeah.
No offense to any positive rappers out there that are kind of cheesy.
Yeah.
I won't really listen to them. Snap has a lot of positive messages in his music, but he's a fucking dope MC.
Yeah, he can do it all.
Like, he's like legit. He's heavy on rotation on my playlist. Not because he's my friend, because I got some friends that I don't even download their music. No offense, but you know what I mean. They're my homies, and I might download it to help them out. And, but Snap is like I said, if I didn't know Snap and I just came across Snap, I'd be telling people like, hey, you fuck with that dude Snap Murphy because he's good. You know what I mean? And it's got a positive message behind it too.
And very versatile. Like comparing to the UFC thing, is like I've always wanted to be a black belt at rap. I wanted to be one of the best freestyle rappers, one of the best songwriters, the wittiness of just thinking of clever and funny lines, rapping fast, rapping slow, to develop a sound from the South, the Midwest, the East Coast, the West Coast. There's nothing I can't do when it comes to writing and creating. And I think that's what makes me stand out more than anything. And, kind of backtrack of like what helps, is that ego that I was saying, is once you lose your ego, because you get people that start reaching out like, hey man, like I really appreciate your vulnerability. Like I'm going through this, like, I'm going through addiction, or I'm going through these hard times. And most recently, the most impactful thing that's ever happened to me is that there's this 12-year-old kid who's sick, has a brain disorder, has to go get an MRI every single Friday. And so the doctor lets him listen to, music during the MRI. And all he tells his mom is, I want to listen to Uncle Snap Murphy, because if he can get through it, I can get through it. And then you look at your life and you think to yourself, no matter what I'm going through, if I can be vulnerable about it, if I can tell my story, there's people out there, even when you don't know, that are listening, and it's impacting their lives. So even though I was even feeling like I'm struggling, what kind of kept me pushing and getting out of the darkness is knowing that there is an impact that I'm making amongst others, and it's no longer living for me, it's living for them, because you become their hero. And that has really, really helped me, just before even sobriety, to just keep pushing in this music thing in general. I'm 39 years old now, and it's just like, a lot of people tell you, oh, you're too old. Like, the best things are happening to me right now, and I'll never give up. I'm aging like wine. I'm only getting better. And it's just something for me where you just you can never give up. And a lot of people will try to knock your dreams down and push you down, but I want to be that story that shows you that you can persevere through anything and everything that has happened to you.
Yeah. Well, I think that we talked about this at lunch when Hoya was out. Hoya is turning like 50 this year or whatever. And we were all talking about like, this day and age, like, we're a different breed of people that are getting older. Before, like, I mean, you look at 80s movies and you can see the guy that's 40 years old and he's in the fucking recliner at 5:30 in the afternoon and he's not. But you, like, people in their 40s, 50s, 60s, it's like we're a different breed because we came from a different time. So now if you can keep that, at least what I believe is that if you can keep that, I'm 45 years old, you know what I mean? JC's around the same age, and, you know, we keep that, if we keep that hunger and that obsessed, like, attitude towards what we're doing, then and we keep our health right and we keep our brain working right, then it's like, oh, fuck, man, then we're actually, you said it, we're aging like fine wine, like, and because we're doing shit, like, I think the best for you is fucking way yet to come, like, you know what I mean, like, for sure.
I feel that through the depth of my soul now. Before I was so uncertain and unsure, and these past, you know, other than this past year, which we'll get into, everything I've gone through, you know, prior to that, it was just like I was getting scared, like, oh man, I'm in mid-30s, where's my life going? I'm in all this debt, I'm in this, like, I'm having to, you know, I'm living with my brother who has an addiction issue where I'm paying rent, and his, you know, his wife, you know, she pays for everything, and so like my rent's going to him, and he's putting it up his nose, or you know, so like that was hard for me because I couldn't afford to live on my own, and now I feel like I'm living in a situation where I'm feeding my brother's addiction, and you know, just that was really hurting. That was making the depression worse too, you know. Like,
I remember that.
But that was tough.
How much are you comfortable talking about, like,
everything.
The last year? Okay.
Everything.
Yeah, because and you don't know any of this, obviously, and man, it was like, fuck, man, like, I was seeing this like happening from afar, you know what I mean? I'm like, whoa. I mean, walk us through, you know what I mean? Because I don't know what even is, like, I don't want to say appropriate, but what I should be asking or not asking without, like, good, you know, I don't know, crossing a line or even making myself feel uncomfortable. But like in the last year, like, you know, what's happened to your life?
I mean, year? So to kind of start, it really was November of 2021. As I was telling you guys, you know, I struggled with self-esteem, all of these things. So one of the first girls that ever asked me to a school dance in 9th grade, this cute blonde girl, Jenna Hines, and just became a really close friend all these years to me. But, you know, all the way up until 2021, I've never lost. I mean, I've lost people through drugs and different things, but no one close to me. And so I get really sick with COVID, and the day that I'm supposed to go back or go to work, I get an email because I got my job at Allegiant through Jenna. Jenna was always the kind of girl that reaches out to you when you're sick to say, hey, dude, can I get you anything, honey? You know, like, do you need I want to get you Gatorade or soup. She's just so thoughtful, so careful, and just really appreciate her. Well, she passed away on her 37th birthday in her sleep, and that was the first time I lost somebody close to me. And when that happened, it really just devastated me because she was one of my, you know, like I said, closest female friends, and that was a very difficult hump to get over. But then January rolls around of 2022, and first Friday I'm performing at a show, I'm drinking, I'm hanging out, and then I get a phone call. My mom is hysterical. My brother was just shot in the face, and he's in Vegas at this time. Both of my brothers moved to Vegas, so that way people know that they ended up moving out here at probably when I was in 10th, 11th grade. So anyhow, my middle brother Phil and his younger son were together, and without getting into too many details per what kind of happened in that situation, it could have been avoidable. They were trying to get a gun from somebody, and this guy pulled the gun out to rob them instead, and my brother went to grab the gun while the guy was in the back seat to take from him. The gun went off and it shot my brother through right through the underneath the jaw, out of like the side of his nose. Absolute miracle that he survived, but he had to have emergency surgery on the broken bones in his face. So my mom is just, who's already been through so damn much, her worst worries and worst fears in her life is losing one of her kids, and because of the drugs, because of the gun violence, everything. So, you know, 6 months prior to this, the son that was with him, the oldest son, they were trying to go get some weed from like a Snapchat, people selling weed or whatever, and a robbery took place there, and he watched his friend shot in the head and died in his arms in front of him. So now he sees his dad get shot in the face now too. So anyhow, he ends up being in the hospital for a couple weeks. He gets out of the hospital, goes back to my mom's house. The day he comes back, my stepdad collapses, and he gets sent to the hospital. Now he's in the hospital for 2 weeks, has emergency brain surgery. And so it's just like my mom's going through so much, and it's just this, you're just devastated. All this stuff keeps happening. He gets out, and 2 weeks later after that, on February 3rd, my mom passes away in her sleep, my everything. And I'm actually working on an album called Grief on February 3rd, 2024. This is an announcement right now, fresh on your podcast.
Oh, man.
I'm releasing that album, and it's 2-year anniversary of my mother's death. And it's just a whole process from the day that my mom died, I started writing that album, all the way until right now. So I can process every emotion of grief to give to the world. So February 3rd, my brother walks up the stairs. He comes in and says, I got terrible news, Matt, and mom's not breathing. And I go in shock. I can't believe what I heard. I don't believe it. I think that if the ambulance must be on their way. They're going to get her to the hospital. She'll be fine. We jump in the car. I call my stepdad. He can't even talk. He's just crying. And that's when it hit me. And I was just devastated, just crying and yelling, crying. We get to the house in a guard-gated community over off of Fort Apache and Twain. And I get into the house. There's cops outside of the front of the house. Everything's hitting me really hard. My brother's like, I'm not going in the house. I don't want to see mom like this. I want to remember her alive. Me, I couldn't. I had to go see her. So I walk into that house, and I get halfway in, and I see her laying on the floor, and my stepdad like kind of holding her head, and just like yelling, and I collapse to the floor, and I cry, screaming tears. My 16-year-old nephew, Christian, comes up to me. Never seen him cry ever. He's struggled with some mental health issues. Picks me up. I hug him. We cry together. I walk right back out of that house, and I'm just in shock. I call my friends. I text my friends and trying to just, let them know what happened. And that's where the beginning of some of the darkest times I've ever went through, because I lost my life right then. My mom and I clinically died when she had me. So it was just, our bond was inseparable, and me having to see my mom die and then watching her carried out in a body bag, I knew that this was the day that will never get worse than this day.
Yeah.
There's nothing that can possibly get worse than this day. And then April 11th comes, and I get a phone call while I'm working, and my friend's like, I pray to God, Matt, this is not your nephew. I pray to God that this didn't happen. Well, my 16-year-old nephew and his older brother, the same one that just saw his dad shot, lost his best friend, they're out drinking the night before, Xanax, whatever they were doing, being kids, and they're friends with them, and they start getting an argument about who's harder. Teens do that. Who's harder? And
dumb shit.
So dumb shit. The older brother and the middle brother fight each other. The older brother's obviously bigger, so he's beating his middle brother up. The older brother has a gun. The middle brother grabs the gun from him and says, "You're not going to put hands on me anymore." And he just shoots it in the house, at the same house I watched my mom carried out of. And it's 7 a.m. He goes out of the house, and I don't know fully the details of what happened in this situation, but in a nutshell, a 70-year-old man was walking his dog during this time. He goes to get involved in the altercation between my 2 nephews. Something happens and takes place where my 16-year-old nephew is shot directly in the back of the head. And I go to the hospital with my older brother, just in shock again, like, why is this happening to our family? And just in shock, and I get to the hospital, the UMC Trauma Center off Rancho, and again, my middle brother is, he's devastated, and he's saying, do you guys want to say bye to Christian? And my oldest brother's like, I can't remember Christian the way I'm going to see him up there. My brother's seen death in his life, and I want to remember him, alive. And this is the same kid that picked me up when I watched my mom die that I've never seen cry, to give me that hug, to when my mom died. So now I'm watching him now on a hospital bed, tubes connected to him that are helping him breathe, and me asking the doctor, there's nothing that you can do. And they're like, we're just waiting at this point, bring fentanyl and, give him a peaceful death. He has too much brain damage. He was shot in the back of the head. And I grabbed his hand, and he twitched his lip, and blood came out of his eye. And I will never forget that when I seen that. And I turned around and I just cried, felt defeated. And I just sat there in that chair and outside of the room and, just felt so devastated and hurt, struggling. And my mother's mom, my grandmother, who I'm also very close to, she was getting me through my mom's death. And, now she calls me and we're talking about, everything that happened to Christian. And it's just so devastating to go through. And I told my grandma, kind of to backtrack, when my mom died, I was the one in charge of practically everything. And I had a church service for her. I didn't have faith in God at this point. I lost all my faith. And, I told my grandma for the first time. I was always scared to tell my grandma I lost faith. And she's like, why don't you tell the priest, honey, that, you lost your faith? And, it's just being a grandma. And I did, and it really didn't help, for me or anything. But, I go through these losses and lost my mom, I lose my nephew now. And my grandma, I asked my mom before she died, what is it you always want me to remember? She just wanted her kids to be happy. I asked my grandmother the same thing before, when you die, what do you want me to remember? She said, I just want you to remember that I know you lost your mother, you lost your nephew, but if you have God in your life, it'll get you through anything. Just remember that God is your best friend. So I get off the phone with my grandma, a couple days after this happens with Christian. I decide that, there's 2 times I almost committed suicide. And what saved me was my mom, not God. So what's going to save me now? That was a huge thought in my head that knew if I didn't get help, my life would be ended. And I seeked out a therapist, and I didn't like therapy because I've tried it 2 times prior. I just didn't enjoy it. I felt like I could be their therapist. I've been through so much shit prior that it was just like a joke to me. But this time I found a really strong woman that, that helped me. And she's like, why don't you go to an AA meeting? If you guys need to stop me too by any point.
No, you're good. You're good.
But why don't you go to an AA meeting? I don't think because you necessarily have a problem with alcohol, but because I know that you want this change in your life, that you might meet like-minded people that are what you need to attract in your life now. I went to one AA meeting, and, I personally, I had, kind of like a separate thoughts on it, because one of them, I did like the fact I was around people that were on that same path. But I also struggled with the fact that it's like, hey, I'm 20 years, I'm an alcoholic, I'm 20 years sober. I just felt like I didn't like putting a label of me thinking I was an alcoholic, because I really didn't feel like I was. I never felt like I was an alcoholic all the way up to the point of when I stopped drinking. But I remember leaving that place 3 days sober already, never had a drink since, but walking out and going straight to a bar because I had to go perform. And, music, you're in venues, you're going to still be in the bar. A lot of people that get sober, they can't be around situations. I put myself face forward into it every way throughout the whole time where I'm at now.
I've thought about that a few times. I'm like,
Yeah.
I kind of like...
It's hard.
I've kind of thought a few times, like, man, I hope he's staying strong, because I'll see, like, obviously that you're performing on social media at bars, and I'm like, man, I hope he's, like, good, you know what I mean, like, being there, because even to this day, I'm 3.5 years in, and even to this day, like, certain circumstances, I still romanticize about, like, man, I could have a beer right here. I could control that, you know what I mean?
I think what made my situation, because we all have our own situations that help, and my situation was remembering my mom telling me that she just wanted her kids to be happy. Well, I was depressed. I was not happy. So what was going to make me happy was finding my happiness to make my mother happy, because that's what makes me happy. So I started using the mantra. I got out, I saw drinks. Did I want it? Yes. But I drank water, and I promised, I was like, you know what, Matt? It's going to be hard, but anything worth life in general is always going to be the things you don't want to do. Exercise, eating healthy, saying no. If these things are anything in life worth it, you gotta realize it's not going to be easy. So take the path, and what is it worth to you? So every drink that I thought about was, this is a temporary fix to a permanent problem. Mm-hmm. That was what I always told myself. And every time that I said no, I downloaded a sobriety app on my phone. And I knew that every single day that I said no, that once I got to 30 days, I only felt, since my mom died, I only really felt her in my heart at this point when I said, Mom, I'm 30 days sober. And I could just see this, I could just feel and see my mom smiling and saying how proud she is of me. And that has helped me with the grief tremendously, as knowing I'm doing things right now that she is definitely so proud of. And that's how I've healed so strongly, and so to where I'm at in this point. But so, basically I go through these things, but it doesn't stop there. I start doing the therapy. I kind of started to stop drinking, but the day that I started doing that, I quit smoking weed as well. And a lot of this was because every time I stressed out, every time I needed a break, I'm off work, I want to go decompress, it was always the weed or the alcohol that I needed for me to be able to numb the pain. And I wanted to handle my stuff face forward, for the first time my mom having a sober son and being able to have that thought. And I told myself, I'm going to do this for 1 year. If I can get through 1 year of grief and get through this and see where I'm at after that year, then that's the thing. That's what I'm going to do. And August comes around, I'm going to put my mom's ashes in the ocean. I get a phone call. My grandmother had a heart attack, and I'm speaking to my grandmother for the very last time. And my grandmother dies on my way to go put my mom's ashes in the ocean. So I lost my best female friend, lose my mom, I lose my grandma, all the feminine female energy that I loved and looked up to for my whole life. And, but that therapist was still there, guiding me with Bible quotes, things that other people would be like, and I'm not a very spiritual person, but I definitely, without a shadow of a doubt, have God in my life now. I pray. It's what's given me, my faith and to not giving up and give hope, and knowing that, now if I ever got into a dark place, it's not mom that's saving me. It is God that's saving me. And that's just my, I know that religion's a touchy thing for everybody. And one thing about me is I respect everybody's beliefs. And I don't think anyone has a right or wrong, but for me personally, that's really guided me through some help in my life. And, having that faith and just kind of being where I've been at with this sober mind as time has gone by, you start to realize I can handle the hard shit a lot easier in life. You see things in a way that you don't see. You go to the bars because you still perform, and you watch all of your friends and they're just discombobulated, and they don't remember anything that's happening that night. And you see these things and you're like, damn, man, this is what my life was that I never saw on the outside looking in. All the times I thought this liquid confidence of me going and approaching girls and thinking that I was cool, like this really wasn't cool for me. Now I go to a bar and I talk to a girl and I'm in the present moment and I'm not fumbling on my words, and I remember the conversation and I remember her name, and just in general, anybody that I meet, it feels empowering to be in a place where people expect you to fail, but you don't. And you set examples, and now some of the friends I have, some of the people are on the sober path with me now, and that they're looking up to you, and you get these little kind of like an army of people who are, it's cool when you're a kid and you're a teen, you want to fit in, you drink, you party, but I think as you get older, there's something really cool about finding sobriety, and that's the best drug that you can possibly be on, is understanding that life is beautiful itself. The love of your friends, the love of your family, and being in those present moments is the best drug that you can possibly have. And I don't judge anybody, that drinks, smokes, to each their own. But I just know that this was a problem for me, and that it was going to lead me down to a place where I would kill myself. And I'd not be happy with myself. And, I stand here today with the most self-esteem I've ever had in my life, the most confidence I've ever had in my life, the most, accomplishments in music, a brand new promotion at work, just my dating life has gotten better. But ultimately, the impact I'm making on strangers and the people reaching out on social media or whatever it might be, the people that I'm watching that are striving, it's just given me a new thought of life, of that it's not about making it for money or possessions. Life, when you die, you cannot take anything with you. You can't take your friends, your family, your sobriety. You can't take the cars, the girls, anything with you. So what's important for me is what can I leave behind that of the interactions that people got from me that will exist when I'm still gone.
You've probably like a lot of people say that, you know what I mean? But you probably, now that you've been sober, feel that, because I say that all the time. And I used to say it before when I was drinking. I'd be like, I got to leave something behind for my grandkids or my son. But now I feel it. I'm like, I need to make a positive impact. I need people to be like, 6 or 7 generations down the road potentially, which is kind of far-fetched. But you know what I mean? They're just like, why do we have this? Why do we have these properties? Why do we have this? Like, where's this family mantra come from? This and that. It's like, oh, it's great grandpa Joe. You know what I mean? That dude was kind of wild and shit, but he left an impact. You know what I mean? And you can really feel that.
We're all connected, and you treat people. The golden rule of my life is always to treat people how I want to be treated, but also to treat yourself how you want to be treated.
Fuck yeah. You deserve we all deserve the best for ourselves. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And the more that you create the best for yourselves, the better that you become. Since sobriety, I became a better friend. I became a better family member. I've been dependable. If I lock in my calendar, I stick to things. I'm impeccable with my words, and it's the relationships that I've developed are stronger, and you get more respect, and you see it and you feel it, and it feels good versus just leaving the wrong image. I feel like on people. Definitely.
No, I'm sorry, I'm not crying. It's allergies, but it's very. Your story did kind of hit home a little bit. So maybe it's allergies, maybe it's a little bit of that. But no, I'm telling you, man, like that depression thing is some. I got lost in what you were saying, man, and actually even forgot we were on the podcast for a minute.
No worries.
But the thing is that, man, I remember, man, I've told this story here, like, you know what I mean, and eventually maybe even on my own episode of this. But the thing is that. I remember, man, I had made like a lot of fucking money in the year 2019. 2018. I had made a lot of money that year, and I remember like 2019. I had was in a bad relationship, and I had stayed like a week at the Park MGM in the suite, and I was downstairs at, there used to be like an Asian restaurant there, like Best Friends or something like that, I think it's called. And I had just got done eating by myself, and because most of my friends had responsibilities, they couldn't be 12 o'clock in the morning, you know what I mean, like, on a Tuesday, like, out with me. And so I'm drinking whiskey and I'm smoking a cigar and I'm sitting on this little table right outside the restaurant, and I'm just like, I remember it's kind of in my feelings, you know what I mean, and I was like, fuck, man, my life is not that fucking cool. I can go do whatever I want right now. Literally rent a fucking helicopter right now and fly somewhere. I go back to my room, I'm looking at the T-Mobile Arena from the Park MGM. Look at all those people walking down there and shit like that, and I go, man, there seems to be, are those people really happy? And then I remember thinking to myself, I didn't think about killing myself that night, but I thought to myself, I understand why CEOs kill themselves.
Yeah,
I remember that. Now that could lead into some dark shit, because you've already kind of now, like, the darkness, the devil, whatever we want to call it, is already sprinkling you with like the idea that, like, hey man, life is not that fucking cool. I looked up to, I raced BMX bikes when I was younger, and I looked up to guys like TJ Lavin and Dave Mira. Remember Dave Mira? For sure. Dave Mira committed suicide. Yeah. And I didn't understand why. No one still to this day knows why. But I think that when you get into a position where people look up to you, that's fucking heavy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when you got people that look up to you and they look for you for inspiration, they don't know what you're fighting, because we're all fighting a different fight, right? 100%. You were fighting your fight, man, and it's like, so, man, most people, if they met you, like, you know what I mean? I've known you for a while now, and I meet you, it's like, I would never guess that you were struggling with depression. Yeah. And when I tell I tell people that I have to be careful. I tell people all the time that I got to be careful. Like, man, I got to be fucking careful because I probably struggle with, you know, depression myself in some form. I got to be careful just like you because I know your story is that we got to be careful because, you know what I mean? It's like we got to learn how, you're right, treat ourselves right.
Well, absolutely. I mean? And another key, you know, takeaway from it is that, you know, big thing for me is I've always wanted to inspire, or not even really inspire, motivate other men to be more vulnerable. You know, it's hard because you grow up as a man, you're always told can't speak about your feelings, and, you know, a lot of people grow up like that, you know. And for me, I've always been the one to be like, dude, if you need a shoulder to cry on, tell me what you're going through. Or, hey, like, you know, I'm the one crying in front of my guy friend and letting them know, like, hey, I don't care how people see or view me or what I'm going through. I'm going to let this out because I can't hold it in.
Well,
and that right there is the biggest thing for me that has helped me with depression. I personally feel that I have conquered depression, and I still deal with it, but I know how to handle it so well.
Because you're using the right tools now.
The right tools now. And also just everything in life is perspective. Whether you're having a bad day or a good day, it's all about how you see that day.
And someone else is having a worse day.
100%. And that's how I look at it. My car breaks down. Am I bitching like, oh, I don't have money, my credit card, oh, this and that, thinking about all those? No, I'm saying this is a luxury. I have a vehicle. How many people have a vehicle in the world? You know, we tend to, as Americans, compare ourselves to other Americans. The girls want to look like the Kardashians. You know, it's just like the guys want to have these six packs and want to get in good shape and get all the women and do these things. But at the end of the day, what makes you happy, and that's the goal of life, is find your happiness and legit happiness. And, you know, and I think that if you find your happiness with yourself and you don't need anybody, then that's the goal.
Fuck yeah.
I'm the leader in the pack of the people I put myself around. I like to think of that because I'm the kind of person that loves talking to people. I'm going to be that old man at Whole Foods that everybody knows, that talks to, and I'm complimenting, and, you know, I just love talking to people. I love hyping them up. I love seeing people win. I can't say I always felt that way. I used to, you know, envy people that were doing better than me, and, you know, as a teen, or like feeling like, you know, a certain way about all of that. But you realize people work hard to get to where they're at. You should always celebrate their wins. And, you know, I don't hate anybody, even my worst enemies. I didn't like me. You know, it's funny because a lot of my friends are like, dude, I don't know why this person likes you, like the nicest guy ever. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of people don't like themselves at the end of the day. And I have no problem with nobody because I can enjoy my own company, you know. And I think that, and enjoying my own company just comes from a place like, I've been beat down so much, you know. Girls were a huge thing for me. I've fallen in love with the wrong people and finding other broken people because I was broken, and, you know, just going through so many different situations and relationships that really were hard, and feeling like I wasn't good enough. And then you realize, wait a minute, like, I have a great heart. You know, you start looking at the things that are positive about yourself. When you're sober minded, at least I do, I'm like, man, I quit alcohol. I quit smoking. I know so many people that can't do this. Like, I may not be able to get to where I'm at, where I want to be in the gym all the time, and I'm going to get there. But, like, you know, it's just like, but you take one thing at a time. You celebrate those little wins of just simply just waking. You know, one of my favorite things to do, I do every single day practically, unless I'm busy with, you know, scheduling, is every day I get out of work at 4:30. I live right by Red Rock. I wait about an hour. I go out there. I hike to my specific spot in the grand circles where you get into the scenic route. I hike up this mountain. I watch the sunset, and that sunset reminds me that if I could see this thing every single day, then I'm winning in life and I'm doing good. And start counting those blessings, and you start finding happiness. And then all the people around you that knew the old you, and they see the new you, they want to talk to you more. They want to, how did you get here? They want to learn. They want to know. And it feels good to be able to even be on a podcast like this talking about sobriety when I was, you know, stumbling out of a bar just over a year ago, you know. So these are amazing wins for me, and I count every single one of these as blessings in my life, and I truly have you know, appreciative of having them, but just also being very grateful for them too, you know.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so, I mean, you know, to start at least the wrap up of this, man, first off, I appreciate you telling that story, man. That was,
yeah, absolutely,
man. I like when we do these episodes. I did it with yours too, you know what I mean, is that you know what I mean? I like getting lost in the story, man, and really seeing that because, you know, especially when there's some parts of the story that you can relate to. You know
sure.
what I mean? I appreciate you. I said it earlier, and I really mean it, is that, you know, there's guests and there's people that you would consider special guests, and you're a special guest to get on here, man.
Thank
and
you,
I'm
man.
sure that we're going to – I have this, you know, from very early on knowing you and doing things with you, I just, you know, you get these feelings – same feeling I have with JC is that you're going to be in this person's life probably forever, potentially.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm going to see Snap Murphy 80 years old at the Whole Foods in rhymes.
Talking about the podcast 40 years ago.
Take things out of your pocket. Take things out of your pocket. Let's rap about it. You know what I mean? Like, but I appreciate, man, a lot of people. Of
course.
You know, we have a lot of people that view these, man. It's crazy.
Awesome,
I
man.
didn't expect the podcast to do even what it's doing and where it's going, and the crazy thing, and to have companies that are even blessing us, like, you know, I have to plug these guys or the homies like Liquid Death and AG1 Greens and those guys that are, you know what I mean, giving us some free stuff that I should probably actually start bringing to the podcast, you know, and stuff. And
bring me some greens, bro.
And you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. But, you know, and those guys and to have so many people, we get a lot of messages, man, that this podcast is impacting people's lives. And I really just wanted to start the podcast to have a reference point.
Yeah.
Because in my own mind, I thought it would be easier to say, like, hey, I know what you're going through. Watch episode 6. You know what I mean? That's really all I started this for.
Well,
you know what I mean? But now
man.
it's like impacting even the short clips. We've had episodes go viral. It's fucking crazy.
The cool thing about it is that everyone, you can have 1,000 guests to talk about perseverance, and every single one of the watchers that are watching it, it's the one watcher they see that relates to themselves. So you can hear 1,000 stories about perseverance, but it's always the one that hits you that lets people know, like, man, this one helped me and that one helped me. And that's what I love about, you know, life could be so simple with words that you use to tell people, but the way that someone says it is what really locks in a lot of times.
Things hit you. Yeah, man, it's crazy. You know, that's the whole other story to go in there, man. But I found the right person at the right time to help me, that if I would have met with any other person at that time that helped me get sober, it might not have affected me and gotten me sober when I did. But I had to meet Jimmy at the time I met Jimmy in my life in order to get sober. Like, you know,
so
it's
man.
like,
and it was good to have friends like yourself, and, you know, just to always kind of root you on. You root on, and that's what I do, is I root on anybody that's starting. And, you know, I went kayak, and that's the cool thing too. What I love about sobriety is I start doing things I never done before. You're not going to bars, so I go kayaking. I fell in love with kayaking.
Yeah, I love kayaking too. I did that after I got sober. It's funny because you don't have to plan your day around like alcohol. Who has the best drink specials and shit. Yeah. Like, you could just be like, oh, you know, it's like
it's really interesting. You mean, the money, I was in $10,000 in debt, you know, on one credit card, and I'm $700 left on it in the last year.
Funny how
that thing would probably be about 15, 20K now.
It's funny how those checks change when you stop drinking. Like, I go to like,
crazy.
I start thinking like, is this my check? I bring it like Lazy Dog. I like live at Lazy Dog. You know what I mean? When I'm out here, it's like, I go to Lazy Dog and the check comes, it's like $42, and that used to have a 1 in front of it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, it's wild, man.
I go out and I count I literally will say, okay, I would have bought a beer right now. How much would it have been? All right, now I need another one at this time. And I start calculating that night, like, look how much money I'm saving.
at least. Yeah,
oh, 100%. Easily. And then just, you know, it's just been an interesting time of the, you know, the harder thing it gets is when you're dating and you're meeting new people. Like, okay, you don't go to the bar anymore, or you don't go that, but then you're meeting quality people that want to go hike. I'm like, hey, if you don't want to meet me for breakfast, I probably don't want you in my life. Like, if you can't meet me at 7 or 8 in the morning to have breakfast because you want to party all night, like, do I want that lifestyle? No, not at all.
It's very difficult.
So my standards have definitely changed.
Yeah, it's very
You don't
difficult.
have standards when you're drunk. You know, like, I've definitely
That's
had
the problem. You don't have standards.
Zero. And you know, just in general, just this. And you know how good it feels to be able to drive a car and say, hey, cops behind me. This doesn't bother me.
I still have,
because not only am I not driving a little buzz like I would do, I used to smoke weed in my car like it was nothing. I'd smoke blunt after blunt in my car. I was just reckless. I lived a reckless lifestyle, and you know, you get away from like living that reckless lifestyle to like, you know what? Like, I'm not doing anything illegal. I'm doing me. I'm working hard. I feel like there's a lift of anxiety off of me.
Yeah.
You know, it's huge. You don't realize it, and like all the anxiety that goes away. And that's been probably the best thing is I don't deal with anymore. Is I don't have anxiety anymore.
Yeah. Think of it. Yeah, mine went away quite a bit as well. But is there anything else you can think of you want to
No,
ask?
I think it's
Mr.
good.
Snap?
No, I think it's great. You're a miracle, bro. And
Thank you, man.
you know, you seem like a really sweet man, and I think that's really special. And you wear that as a badge of honor. And I think it's great. And you know, just thanks for being here, and thanks for the messages that you put out.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. You know, if I can plug in my, is it cool if I plug in my
dude,
social?
that's where I was going. That's why I was like, where do we find you?
So,
your music?
couple good
like,
things. You know, I number one, I just want to plug. I just did the biggest feature of my life. This guy Benny the Butcher. He's on Griselda. He's a really big artist. Griselda. Yeah. I mean, Conway and you know, West Side Gun were signed to Shady Aftermath, and so Benny was right there with them during this whole thing. But Benny is he's just got a music video with J. Cole. Well, we just released a song called Hood Politics. It's out on my Bandcamp and SoundCloud, but July 28th on all streaming platforms. And then I'm doing a huge festival coming up in Ontario, California. Shout out to my boy 60 East.
Right there. I'm there.
Yeah.
Right there.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. So you got Immortal Technique will be there. Joel Santana. You got a bunch of people that are going to be there. Pharoah Monch. Pac Div, which is a group I like. But I'm going to be rocking that festival October 7th. It's going to be probably the biggest show I've ever done. I'm super stoked about it.
That's awesome.
And, you know, I kept it easy. So the best way to find me, you can literally Google Snap Murphy. I have snapmurphy.com, snapmurphy@gmail if you need to email me for booking inquiries. All of the Instagram, Facebook, everything Snap Murphy. So just Snap Murphy. That's all you got to search for.
And then, you know, we'll plug you on our pages too, obviously, so people can find you. And if if you can't think of anything else, you know, I mean, I guess we'll just end with, you know, what we end with every episode.
Take us home, Joe.
Is that you know, take us home. Let's go. You know, if you guys are if anybody you know is struggling, if you're struggling, anybody you know, anybody close to you, anybody that you might even just be acquaintance with that you feel that can benefit from what we're doing here, or just needs some help, finding some help, you know, I mean, definitely reach out to us. You know, our social media. For Instagram, Facebook. I think we even have a Twitter now. We definitely have a TikTok, and we check all the messages as Raised by Wolves. It's spelled a little weird in case you're just listening to this and not watching it. It's RZDxWLVS. So it's pretty much at every, you know, in every platform, RZDxWLVS. You know, so, you know, definitely reach out to us. You know, we've successfully, I don't know. It's up to them. I just want to plug this real quick because it's up to them, obviously, if they finish the program or or what they do after it. But we've helped about 40 people find help so far starting this podcast, and we have 2 people, one being a family member of mine in treatment right now because of something that they watched on the podcast.
That's amazing.
We get messages every single day.
You help one life, and that's a win. You got
if I'd help one person get help, then this whole thing that we're doing here and every dollar I've spent in putting this whole thing together would have been worth it.
Yeah,
and so
you're exceeding expectations.
Yeah,
and you're going to keep continuing to do so.
Yeah, that's what we definitely got to do. So thank you everyone for listening to us, watching, and thank you again, Snap, and always, you know, my co-host JC Coates. Thank you, man, for being here, and you know, thanks everyone.
Peace.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.